Hey folks, in this video, let's talk about economic or fiscal performance of Indian states. Recently, Indian government-run Niti Aayog, the think tank, came out with FHI 2025. FHI stands for Fiscal Health Index. FHI 2025 ranked Indian states based on their fiscal performance. I think this index comes out every year. Here, we'll talk about 18 Indian states. India has more states, 28 states and 8 union territories, but these 18 states make up over 96% of India's total GDP. Therefore, the focus on these 18 states. Now, look at the top 10 states based on FHI 2025. Keep in mind, FHI 2025 is based on the fiscal performance of the states from financial year 2022-23 because it takes time to get accurate economic data that goes through multiple revisions over the years. So, this indicator or this index inherently will be a lagging indicator. Anyways, FHI score is a combination of five components ranging from how effectively a state is able to collect revenue or taxes, how effectively and efficiently it is able to spend the revenue, and what are its debt levels. Initially, I had thought FHI score would be some kind of a weighted average of these five components, but no, it's just plain average of these five components, and you get FHI score. Anyways, these 10 states that are doing pretty well based on the FHI score, the report classifies them as achievers and frontrunners. So, top five, Odisha to Gujarat, are achievers, and Maharashtra to Karnataka are frontrunners. So, these 10 states are managing their state finances fairly responsibly. Bottom eight states, though, based on FHI 2025, are not doing so hot, particularly Kerala, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, and Punjab. These states have significant fiscal challenges. To highlight this point, look at this table that indicates debt levels for various states and union territories in India. Now, these numbers are based on estimated projections for the current financial year, that is 2024-25. Two metrics. One, debt to GSDP ratio. GSDP is gross state domestic product. For a nation, we measure GDP. For a state, it is GSDP. It's basically GDP of a state. Debt to GSDP ratio indicates how much debt that particular state is carrying as a percentage of the state GDP. Lower the number here is better. And second one, fiscal deficit as a share of state GDP. When a state runs fiscal deficit, it means its expenditure is more than its revenue. Otherwise, the state would be running fiscal surplus. Also, this number we want as low as possible. Now, the four states that have been highlighted as problem states based on FHI 2025 rankings, look at their debt to GSDP ratios. Quite high, over 33%. Punjab, highest, 44%. And even their fiscal deficit is over 3.4% or higher as a share of their state GDP. So they are spending way more than what they are collecting in taxes, and their debt load is quite high. Compare their performance with some of the best performing states in India. Look at Maharashtra, Gujarat, Odisha. Their debt to GSDP ratios are below 20% as opposed to what 40% for Punjab. Their fiscal deficit 2.5% roughly thereabouts or below that. Odisha can do a little better, but Maharashtra and Gujarat are much better in terms of fiscal deficit as opposed to the four poorly performing states highlighted by FHI 2025. I'll highlight one more aspect of this analysis. Look at this table. It ranks states based on how much they contribute to India's state GDP. For example, Maharashtra is India's largest state as far as GDP is concerned. So, if India's GDP is roughly $4 trillion, Maharashtra alone contributes over 12% to India's total GDP. So, Maharashtra's economy alone is over $500 billion. So, if you consider top five states, Maharashtra to Uttar Pradesh, Just these five states make up almost 50% of India's total GDP. So, if these five states do well financially, it will go a long way in helping pull up India's overall GDP. Delhi is interesting, very small geographically, it is not a state, but it contributes over 3% to India's total GDP. Look at debt levels, very low, single digits. No other state or union territory has that. And fiscal deficit also quite manageable. They are almost breaking even. In conclusion, these FHI rankings should enable states to compete. It should encourage them to improve their state finances. If the state you reside in has low debt and low fiscal deficit, your state will have a lower interest payment, which will allow them to increase capital expenditure or infrastructure spend, increase spending on healthcare and education at local level, that is at a state level. On the other hand, if your state starts giving out freebies or raveries, and it's not that you can give out freebies only to the voters, freebies are also given to big corporates. If your state is big on freebies and does not bring in enough tax revenue to cover the cost of that, the state will be heavily indebted. That means interest payments will be high, and capex, spending on education, healthcare, and other welfare services at the state level will suffer. Hopefully, FHI rankings will put a spotlight on fiscal indiscipline of some Indian states. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.